Hello everyone. In this video we are going to be considering complex numbers. We would recall that in the previous video on using the determinants to determine the nature of roots, we solved a problem, a quadratic equation that has a negative discriminant, and we got stuck because at some point we had a negative sign under the square root. Here is the equation again. 2x squared minus 5x plus 7 equal to 0, and our solution went thus. Now, as we can see, we've got a negative number under the square root here. And when we got to this stage, we just concluded that there was no real solution, because the square root of a negative number is not going to give any real solution. So this is where the complex number comes in. If we write negative 31 as negative 1 times 31, and from one of the rules of surds, this particular one, have this, the root of negative 1 times 31, as the root of negative 1 times the root of 31. Now, if I let the square root of negative 1 to be I, then I would see that in actual fact, the square root of negative 31 can be written as I times root 31, and this is just I root 31. This is a complex number. So the complex numbers comprise of a system that has its roots in the square root of a negative 1. So unlike in the previous problem where I got stuck here, this is going to allow me proceed, and I can just take this up. X equals 5 plus or minus square root of negative 31 over 4 is just going to be equal to 5 plus or minus I root 31 over 4. And this is going to allow me, obtain my solutions. Splitting the 4 underneath would fetch me 5 over 4 plus I root 31 over 4. Or here I would have 5 over 4 minus I root 31 over 4. Now let's focus on one of them. If I focus on 5 over 4 plus I root 31 over 4, now we would see that this complex number has two parts. The real part, which we've always been familiar with, 5 over 4, that's a positive number. So we're going to call that the real part of the complex number. And also the imaginary parts. This is the imaginary parts. So this is imaginary. Thus, we can conclude that a complex number consists of two parts, the real parts and the imaginary parts. Thus, if a complex number is represented by z, we can say that z can always be expressed as a plus ib, where a is the real part of the complex number and b is the imaginary part. We can rely on this definition, the fact that I is equal to the square root of negative 1, to obtain higher versions of I. For example, I squared. Since I equals square root of negative 1, and I know that I squared is just squaring I, so this is just going to be negative 1 squared, and we know what the square does, it nullifies the square roots, so we can see that I squared is negative 1. Let's take I to the power of 3 next. I raised to the power of 3. Now, this can be written as I squared times I. This is relying on the first law of indices, a to the power of x times a to the power of y equals a to the power of x plus y. So if I add these powers, this is raised to the power of 1. I'm going to get I raised to the power of 2 plus 1, which is I to the power of 3. Now, I squared was found to be negative 1, and this is just I. So we can see that I raised to the power of 3 is negative I. Okay, I to the power of 4. This can be written as I squared times I squared. So I squared already is negative 1. So this is just negative 1 times negative 1. And this is a positive 1. Okay, let's take it a step further. I raised to the power of 7. So already we know that 7 can be written as 4 plus 3. And from the first law of indices, this is going to be I raised to the power of 4 times I raised to the power of 3. Because this is going to give I raised to the power of 4 plus 3, which is 7. I haven't obtained the value of I to the power of 4. So this is 1 times I to the power of 3 is a negative I. So we can see that I raised to the power of 7 is 1 times negative I, and this is just negative I. One final one, I raised to the power of 23. Okay, so we know that 23 is 1 plus 22. And of course, 22 can be written as 2 times 11. Therefore, I raised to the power of 23 can be written as I raised to the power of 1 plus 22. So this is going to be equal to I raised to the power of 1 times I raised to the power of 22, going by the first law of indices. So this is I raised to the power of 1, that's I. Now 22 is 2 times 11. So this can be written as I 2 times 11. I'm just going to do this. I know what I squared is. I squared from here is a negative 1. So this is negative 1 raised to the power of 11. Now, negative 1 raised to the power of an odd number is just going to give negative. So this is just I times negative 1. And this is negative I. If you find this video useful, kindly like, share, drop a comment, and do not forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.